Hello, I'm your host, Neil Howard, here on Health Professional Radio. Thank you so much for joining us for another segment. In this segment, we're going to have a conversation with Nadim Ahmed. He's joining us here from Cullinan Oncology to discuss his perspective on the future of the oncology treatment landscape, as well as what Cullinan Oncology is specifically doing for patients with unmet needs. Welcome to Health Professional Radio, Nadim Ahmed. Thank you for taking the time.
Great to be here, Neil.
Give us a little bit of insight into who you are and your role at Cullinan Oncology, if you would.
Happy to do that, Neil. So I'm a pharmacologist by training, so pharmacology was my undergraduate degree. And I then went on to do a master's degree in information technology. And so from a career perspective, I joined Wellcome, so the historical name for you there, which was Burroughs Wellcome in the US, of course, which then became Glaxo Wellcome and ultimately GlaxoSmithKline. And at the point that Glaxo Wellcome and SmithKline merged, that's when I came to the US. And I then, after GlaxoSmithKline, I joined Celgene Corporation, was there for just under a decade. My last role with them was president of the Hematology Oncology business. And then I joined BMS through the acquisition, became president of the hematology business at BMS, and then joined Cullinan Oncology in October of 2021, so coming up to 1 year. Mm-hmm. And in my career, I've worked in clinical development, medical affairs, and all aspects of commercialization.
What exactly is the mission of Cullinan Oncology?
So as our name suggests, we really focus our efforts on developing new treatments for cancer. And what differentiates us from other companies, I would say, is that we take a modality-agnostic precision oncology approach to drug discovery and development. So lots of companies tend to focus on a specific platform or a specific mechanism. We're agnostic to the modality. So the modality-agnostic approach really ensures we have a very diversified pipeline with multiple different shots on goal. And as it pertains to the pipeline, we have a deep and broad pipeline at various stages of development across both hematologic and solid tumors. When I joined the company in October 2021, we had one program in the clinic. We now have 3 programs in the clinic. And by this time next year, we're planning to have 5 programs in the clinic. So exciting time for us as a company. We also have a robust cash position, fortunately, with a cash runway of 5 years through the end of 2026. Which will really allow us to accelerate both our current pipeline and also bring in promising oncology assets. And ultimately, our focus as a company, Neil, is to create new standards of care for patients with cancer.
Are there certain types of cancers that you target?
So we have 8 programs now across hematologic and solid tumor cancers. And if I touch on the key ones that are either in the clinic now or ready to enter the clinic, we have 5 of those. So CLN-081 is our small molecule tyrosine kinase inhibitor for the treatment of non-small cell lung cancer patients who harbor the EGFR exon 20 insertion mutation. We're planning a pivotal registration study by the end of this year for this program. CLN-049 is a bispecific T-cell engaging antibody targeting the oncogene FLT3 to treat acute myeloid leukemia or AML. That's currently in a phase 1 study. CLN-619 is a monoclonal antibody targeting the unique MICA, MICB pathway, which is ubiquitously expressed across most solid and hematologic cancers. That's also currently in a phase 1 dose escalation study. And our 2 programs, which will enter the clinic next year, hopefully, CLN-617, which is a single-chain fusion protein combining the potent cytokines IL-2 and IL-12 for the treatment of solid tumors. And CLN-978, which is our T-cell engaging antibody targeting CD19 for the treatment of B-cell malignancies such as non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, again planning to enter the clinic next year. So these are 5 of our programs that are either in the clinic already or should be in the clinic by the end of next year, again across a range of tumor types.
How do these 5 types of cancers impact patient populations and who is actually affected?
Yeah, so these cancers that I mentioned for our molecules are typically aggressive tumors, which result in very poor prognosis for the impacted patient populations. And we focus on these cancers because of the high level of unmet need. And ultimately, our goal is to develop novel treatments which will significantly improve the outcomes in these patient populations. So, for example, I mentioned CLN-081. In the US, approximately 15% of non-small cell lung cancers harbor various types of EGFR mutations. And insertions at exon 20 account for 12% of these EGFR mutations, or 1 to 3% of all non-small cell lung cancer patient populations. And patients that have this exon 20 mutation have very poor outcomes and are not very well controlled in terms of current treatments, including, by the way, checkpoint inhibitors. Our T-cell engager I mentioned, CLN-049, targets AML. So AML is the most common form of acute leukemia in adults, and it really is a rapidly progressing cancer. Patients typically are diagnosed when they're older, at age 72, and the 5-year survival rate is a dismal 10%. The most current effective treatments for AML are intensive chemotherapy followed by allogeneic stem cell transplantation. Unfortunately, this regimen can be very toxic for older patients. And so in effect, this means that AML patients, the majority of AML patients, tend to be ineligible for this type of intensive therapy. So there really is a significant need for safer and more effective treatments for the majority of AML patients. And then one of the key challenges for cancer treatment is finding novel therapies that are able to overcome the various pathways that cancer cells use to actually evade our immune system. So cancer can be very clever in that regard. Our antibody CLN-619, as I mentioned, targets MICA, MICB, and so it actually restores the ability for the immune system to recognize and flag cancer cells for elimination by important immune cells that can then kill cancer cells. I also mentioned earlier, checkpoint inhibitors have really revolutionized the field of immuno-oncology, but not all patients have an immune response due to some of their tumors being cold, which means that they have very low T-cell infiltration. They're very non-susceptible to immune-acting agents. Our fusion protein, CLN-617, uses, as I mentioned, very potent cytokines IL-2 and IL-12 to actually turn these cold tumors into hot tumors. So injection directly into these tumors keeps the immune response localized. It reduces the systemic toxicity that we've typically seen with IL-2 and IL-12 historically, but it also induces an abscopal effect, which means it eliminates cancer cells outside the primary tumor site of injection also. So, again, these cancers can be very poor in terms of prognosis, but hopefully our treatments will make a significant outcome to address all of these cancers.
Well, Nadim, you talked about the diversity of your pipeline. Talk about how you're able to maintain such a diverse pipeline.
Yeah, we take a unique approach to innovation. So first, we approach innovation with humility. In other words, we understand that the best innovation doesn't always come from within our four walls. So we're also agnostic to the source of innovation. Our focus is on obtaining the best innovation, whether it's through internal discovery or external partnerships. So we call this innovating without borders. Secondly, we're very disciplined about focusing on either first-in-class or best-in-class molecules. So we test the profile of all of our molecules by applying rigorous, very early experimentation through thriller or killer experiments to fast-track only the most promising assets to the clinic. So only those that are first or best-in-class make it through our screen. And third, we start the discovery process by identifying high-impact cancer targets, and then we decide which is the best modality to address the target rather than the other way around. So in summary, be very clear about your core focus areas, focus on the quality of innovation, not the source, and conduct rigorous early experimentation with a high bar for your molecules to progress to the next stage.
What's ahead for Cullinan Oncology?
Yeah, as I mentioned, our pipeline continues to progress with 5 assets in the clinic by this time next year, with hopefully multiple data readouts. Our goal is to develop molecules into medicines and then deliver on our promise of creating new standards of care for patients with cancer. Unfortunately, in today's market conditions, many companies are scaling down. We're in a fortunate position to be rapidly growing as a company based on our diverse pipeline, our strong cash position, our internal expertise in oncology, and I must say, an excellent leadership team. Ultimately, my vision for the company is for us to evolve from an R&D company to become a commercial stage, fully integrated biotech company.
Well, if you would, give us a website where our listeners can learn more.
Sure, happy to do that. So to learn more about the work we do at Cullinan Oncology, you can visit our website at cullinanoncology.com, and also to keep up with the perspectives of our leadership team, as well as how the broader team Cullinan is driving our company forward, please follow me on LinkedIn by searching Nadim Ahmed.
Cullinan is Cullinan Oncology.com, correct? All one word.
That's correct, Neil.
Great.
All one word.
Great. Nadim, it's been a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you so much for your time this morning. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Neil.
You've been listening to Health Professional Radio. I'm your host, Neil Howard, in conversation with Nadim Ahmed, President and CEO of Cullinan Oncology. Audio copies of this program are available at hpr.fm and healthprofessionalradio.com.au. You can also subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, listen in, download it, SoundCloud, and be sure and subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/Health Professional Radio.